I have once again created the perfect player, and we are going to look at the data for how the perfect player can be so dominant. And in this experiment, we are giving the perfect player the best possible chance to be as dominant as they can possibly be. And this is because we have put the perfect player on Kaya, who are undoubtedly the best team in the Philippines Football League with 1-4 odds to win this season's PFL championship. And we are putting the perfect player in a 4-2-4 formation, playing as an advanced forward with a formation that I believe is the meta for this year's Football Manager. So we have the perfect player playing with a meta tactic with the best team in the league, and a league that's, let's be honest, definitely compared to the perfect player, isn't very good. So this should give the perfect player the best possible opportunity to be absolutely phenomenal, to do everything they could possibly do. And then we're going to look at the data to see how they did it. So, of course, we're going to look at the stats, and we'll also go into reports and look at the different data afterwards. And previously, we did this where we put the perfect player at Man City, put them in the English Premier Division where they absolutely dominated, and we looked at the data behind that. But now we're placing them in a worse league on a team that comparatively might be even better than Man City compared to the rest of the other teams in the league. So, being in a team who the gap between them and the rest of the league is huge, and a league where there isn't anyone coming close to the perfect player, a player with all 20s who's tall and strong. This should be a chance for the perfect player to have the most dominant season of all time. So with all of those parameters set, we are going to simulate forward one season to see how dominant the perfect player can be. So let's sim forward one season, and then let's look at the data. And one season later, Kaya, as expected, absolutely dominated. I'm actually surprised they lost a game. They lost 2-1 away to United City, who finished second. But 23 wins, 1 loss, 173 goals scored. That's insane. 173 goals in 24 matches, mind you. This is less matches played than most other leagues. 173 goals, 32 allowed, a plus 141 goal difference, and 69 points. That plus 173 scored suggests that our perfect player scored a huge number of goals. Let's look at that. So looking at the player overview, I have never seen that before. The perfect player scored 82 goals in 24 matches. They actually only played 21 matches. They scored 82 goals. I thought it was impressive that the perfect player in the EPL scored like 63 goals, but in significantly less games, he scored 82 goals. He scored a goal every 23 minutes. He was averaging pretty much a goal per half. He only had shots on target, 156 shots on target. That means with every shot on target, he scored 1 of every 2 shots on target. We are going to look more into the data later. That's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Next up, most assists, perfect player, 21 assists in 21 matches. He was also having an assist per match. I imagine all these other assists for the players on Kaya were mostly to the perfect player. But he also had, unsurprisingly, the most shots, all nearly triple, actually, the best player not on a team from Kaya. The fact that he only had 19 Player of the Match awards is almost surprising. I'm surprised he didn't have 21 Player of the Match awards. He also had the most key passes by a country mile. This is insane. Looking at some of the key attacking statistics from the league, again, perfect player, 82 goals. He had 60 more goals than the next, but the rest of the players on this page probably don't even have the number of goals that the perfect player scored. Expected goals, that's great. He had 42 expected goals, 42 expected goals, which means he doubled the expected goals that he had. This expected goals over performance. He overperformed his expected goals by 40. That is amazing. Average minutes per goal. I mean, he was averaging 4 goals a game, 22 minutes per goal. He was averaging pretty much 4 goals a game, maybe even more than that. Shot again, he had the most shots. He had the most shots on target. Unsurprising, he still had a really high shots on target percentage too, which is pretty interesting. So shots on target percentage, that's going to be like shots on target versus just total number of shots and looking at the percent. That's pretty impressive. This was much lower when he was in the English Premier Division. So that's really interesting to see. Conversion rate, 33%, not super high compared to the rest of the league, but again, he was taking so many shots. He had almost 12 shots per match. So, I mean, he's shooting a lot, so it's not surprising that the conversion rate's low. Again, really high on the assist metric, less assists comparatively, I think, compared to the English Premier Division, but I think that's because he was scoring a lot more goals. Assists per 90, again, he was averaging 1 assist per 90, so that's really high. A lot of key passes and a lot of key passes per 90. I almost wonder, actually, looking at these key passes, if he would have had more assists with a better team around him. With the other perfect player at Man City, he was putting in passes to Erling Haaland and Bernardo Silva, players like that. So maybe they were more likely to put away those assists and key passes he was making. And again, looking at his chances, he had the most chances created throughout the season. So that does suggest that he was creating a lot of chances. His teammates should have been scoring maybe more goals. I also find interesting the perfect player in both situations had the most crosses attempted. I think that's interesting given he's a forward, he's not necessarily a winger. So to see him putting in the most crosses is really interesting. Really high on dribbles made. Again, he's higher up the pitch. You wouldn't expect him necessarily to be making all these dribbles, but I mean, high dribbles made. He's the second highest for dribbles made, despite not necessarily being the highest for dribbles per 90. And I think this is the key stat. We talked about assists earlier. He did have the highest number of expected assists. So this suggests that maybe his teammates around him were less capable of putting those shots away. Because again, he had a one expected assist per game, essentially. Again, not surprising, high non-penalty XG, high non-penalty XG per 90 minutes, high chances created per 90 minutes, way above the rest of the league. So looking at everything again, 21 appearances, 82 goals, 21 assists, 19 player of the match, a 9.8 average rating. This is really interesting. I mean, the formation must be so meta, but I've never seen the perfect player in any of these experiments do as well as in these last two experiments. And again, looking at total goals, he had 34 goals in 5 friendlies, 82 goals in 21 league matches, 20 goals in 5 cup matches, 7 goals in 6 continental matches, 14 goals in 6 appearances there. I did make him Filipino, so in 6 caps, he has 14 goals. And that means in just 32 total appearances, he scored 109 goals. I thought it was amazing that the perfect player at City scored 108 or 103 goals, something like that. But 109 goals in significantly less matches. I've never seen anyone so dominant before. All right, with that in mind, we have to see the data. Let's see the data, the graphical representation of how the perfect player is so dominant. So we're going to go here and then we'll ask for some data. But defending forwards, I've never understood why this is defending. I mean, like open play, expected assists, I don't know why that is defending. But I don't expect him to be as good of this because they had a lot of the ball. Unsurprisingly, pass completion percentage isn't super high. He's making more key passes, trying to get the ball forward. But open play, expected assists, essentially the highest in the league. Looking at the interceptions is still pretty high. Given that they probably had more of the ball, that's pretty interesting. But huge on progressive passes. Goals per 90 is obviously the highest in the league. Non-penalty XG is obviously the highest in the league. We saw that shots on target, he was pretty high. And unsurprisingly, he won a lot of headers given his physical attributes. So, this here, perfect players performing well above average in key statistics for his defensive role in the team. I imagine, though, when we look at some of the more attacking stuff, we'll see this be even crazier. I have no idea why the perfect player is a forward and keeps being compared to wingers for creativity, but this is interesting because he's actually less dominant here than he was in the English Premier League. I'm gonna put this a lot down though to being in a different team. But goals is the highest in the league as we're expecting to see. And assists could be higher, but again, that's compared to other players on Kaya who are giving him assists. So I'm not surprised that he's not super high there. Non-penalty XG high, open play expected assists. That's interesting. I would think that would be a little bit higher. Dribbles per 90, not super high. Actually, a little bit lower than average on pass completion percentage and cross completion percentage, as well as progressive passes per 90. Though he's a forward, that's expected. But compared to other wingers, which he is not a winger, actually not super high there. But now this is what I want to see. We're looking at scoring for forwards, shots per 90 minutes and goals per 90 minutes. This is why I made this video. This is what I want to see. The perfect player's scoring statistics are huge outliers. There is nobody even within the ballpark of him. He has the best shooting possible, and he scores a lot of goals. Again, aggressive shooting, high scoring. This is what I love to see. There isn't anyone close to him. Uzoka here, Arboleda, Asare, these are all like this is average. This is a good player in the Philippines Football League. This is a good player in the Philippines Football League. Like the outliers of the league are here. And then like you could put another whole league's worth of players within here. And then here is the perfect player. This is what I want to see. This is the data I wanted to see. This is essentially the same, but once again, the perfect player, a huge outlier in shooting. This is an aggressive shooter, a clinical shooter. Actually, shout out to Burvich Italia here, who doesn't shoot as much as he should, but scores a lot of goals, and also Paulo Casambre. But again, the perfect player, a huge outlier. Here's an interesting one, though. Again, a player who crosses the ball a lot, who puts in a lot of key passes, but not necessarily his players getting on the end of. He is a hugely inaccurate passer and is actually maybe in a not good way, actually an outlier in a bad way. Because he's relatively inaccurate and he passes the ball a lot. This is interesting. So the outlier here is actually Batista, but the perfect player, interestingly, kind of a bad outlier here. But I can't blame him. Again, though, this is what I'm here for. Goals per 90, assists per 90. The perfect player's phenomenal. Shout out to Kurt Dizon again for having a high assist per 90 as well as Arboleda. But again, most of those assists are going to the perfect player. But again, the perfect player is a high scorer and high assister. I mean, he's such an incredible outlier. And actually, it should be investigated further because he's that good of an outlier that we need Sherlock Holmes to come in and do some more investigation here. So that's everything on the basic screen. Let's just look at other stuff for forwards, attacking forwards. This is what I love. This is what I love to see. This is a player who is absolutely the best in everything. Goals per 90, non-penalty XG, assists per 90, shots per 90, open play expected assists per 90, progressive passes per 90, and key passes per 90. He is absolutely the best in everything. The only thing that he wasn't as good at is shots on target percentage. That's not super surprising again, given how often he was shooting. But man, I've never seen this. One day I hope to get this so that everything, like a player that's the best in everything in these categories, so that we can get a perfect, I assume this is an octagon, a perfect octagon here. But for now, this is such a fun graph to look at. A similar graph here, looking at creativity for forwards, now not wingers, but forwards. Again, this is what we like to see. Progressive passes per 90, I'm not surprised that's slow, and the conversion rate's not as high again, kind of similar to shots on target. But again, open play XG, dribbles per 90, key passes, assists, non-penalty XG, and goals. Man, I just love to see how dominant. I love to see in a graphical representation just how dominant the perfect player really is. Here's a fun one. We have expected attacking output. This is looking at XG assists and non-penalty XG, and once again, the perfect player is an incredible outlier here, looking at all the different types of XG stats. It's so cool seeing him like And again, these are Kaya players. Like all of these players here are Kaya, so these expected assists are really going towards the perfect player. It's fun to see because really these are the players here. This is the rest of the Philippines Football League in this area here. And the perfect player is just an incredible outlier in comparison. Here's another fun one given the incredible athleticism of the perfect player. We're seeing that he gets a lot of headers and is a very strong header of the football. Again, this is interesting because again he gets lots of headers and is a strong header. But we don't necessarily play a direct style of football, so he's not expected to get a lot of headers, but he's still winning a lot of them. So compared to other players like Javier Galloso here, shout out to him for having a really high headers one ratio here. But the perfect player, 80% headers one ratio. So he has the highest headers one ratio in the league. And he attempts apparently about 10 headers per 90 minutes. Um, so this makes him, again, another huge outlier because especially the headers one ratio, he's winning headers at a incredible rate. The last big one, maybe less of an outlier, but again, we're going to see why. Passes attempted per 90. He has a lot of passes attempted and a lot of assists per 90, averaging about 1 assist per 90. There are only two players ahead of him, and those players are Abeleda and Dizon, who are on Kaya, who were supplying those assists for the perfect player. So Prince Batista here, shout out to him. He's got a high number of passes and stuff. But again, the perfect player, even in an assisting role, he's scoring incredible numbers of goals. But even as a playmaker, he is still incredible compared to the rest of the league. Well, that's pretty much all of the data there. I just want to end again because I like looking at this goal output. Just the incredible nature of of him being an outlier that should be investigated further compared to everyone else in the division. Truly, the perfect player was as perfect as he could be. I am curious briefly just to look at his schedule because they were in the Champions League. They lost 8-4, 8-4 in the Champions League to Kawasaki, who's a very good team, way better than Kaya should be. He got 4 goals. That's so fun. Champions League group. Interestingly, he didn't score there. Champions League group. No goals for Kaya there. 5-1 win. He did score there. 6-3. He did score there as well. So he actually had a really good Champions League campaign as well. Again, being among the best in the Champions League as far as goals are concerned, even though Kaya wasn't able to make it out of their Champions League group. And then unsurprisingly, they won the PFL Cup. He had 4 goals in the PFL Cup final. 82 goals in 21 league matches. Might be the most insane stat I've ever seen across any league. So again, this was the chance to see the perfect player at his most dominant, playing in a league and on a team that he should be just so much better than, and playing again in a team that's so much better than the rest of the league. We had an opportunity here to see the perfect player at his most dominant and the data that makes him so dominant. And I think we saw that all today. This was really fun. If you want to go see the previous video, I'll use that as the end screen here. So this was the perfect player at Kaya. The other one is the perfect player at Man City in the English Premier Division, and looking at the data behind that. With that all being said, I hope you all have enjoyed this video. This was a fun kind of 2-episode series, and I will see you all in the next FM experiment. Bye!